Welcome back to Inside Business. We're still with Prt2, CEO of AgriNurture, and Rolly D, head of the UAP's Food and Agribusiness Center. Let's talk about rice. The government spends and ends up spending a lot of money on rice because it buys high and sells low. The previous government has talked about, and this government has talked about, restructuring, reorganizing, even abolishing and replacing the NFA, which does this buy high, sell low operation. How necessary is it for us to do that?
Well, I think there's no reason why we should stop importation of rice, because in the first place, the country is short of rice. Our national inventory does not reach a level where we can carry ourselves over the entire cycle of one production.
Our inventory is about 2 months, is that about right?
Less than 2 months, whereas our neighboring countries, at least they keep 1 year inventory. In a year, you only produce 2 cycles of rice. So that means to say, whatever happens, we have to survive until the next harvest. So of all the commodities, I think rice we should avoid we can regulate to strike a balance, but I am honestly not agreeing that we should restrict the importation of rice. And in fact, by creating this move, we're effectively allowing NFA to be a corrupt agency, to be a losing agency, whereas NFA of other nations, similar entities, they're supposed to make money because of buy low, sell high. So when the supply is abundant, they buy low. When the supply is scarce, they sell the finished product in the market to stabilize the consumer price index. On our end, we're actually doing the reverse. So
we have our own economics here.
Yeah, so something is wrong. Dr. D is an expert of this. I guess with regards to the rice, it's really a political crop, and I do not believe that we as a nation will not survive by shifting rice to some other high-value crops.
The idea being, let's produce higher value crops and buy rice or buy more rice from countries that can produce it more cheaply and more effectively. Is that right?
Well, there's a growing realization now in this government that the so-called food sufficiency should not be based on rice alone.
But they're still saying that they're going to have rice self-sufficiency this year. I'm not sure how they're defining self-sufficiency.
There will be less imports. And definitely now we are exporting some small quantities of fancy rice varieties. What I meant to say is that in the context of the money you spend, in the context of the global water shortage in the century, that they have realized that carbohydrate sources should not only on the basis of rice, but you have kamote, saba banana, you have cassava and the like, which is good, no? And that requires support. At the same time, there's going to be a shift to high-value crops, to 3 crops, because there's really potential, massive potential in increasing productivity on non-rice crops, no, in the Philippines. And Tony here is correct that you cannot rely on coconut alone, but there's so much space under the coconut trees that you can intercrop with cacao and coffee and will massively reduce poverty in the coconut areas.
Coconut, or at least coconut water, has become, in the last 3 years or so, if I remember correctly, a big industry here. We used to throw away that water.
Yes.
What changed the picture?
Well, it's really supply and demand. As I've always been pointing, when there's demand, supply will follow. We've been able to, since a few years ago when Madonna and Demi Moore, they popularized the Vita Coco in the US mainstream market, Pepsi-Cola and Coca-Cola follow suit. So that created all this demand for coconut water. And luckily, the taste and profile of the Filipino coconut are a lot better than some of the neighbors. So the only challenge right now is really organization of the supply.
So in terms of coconuts, we didn't add much more technology there. That's been there all the while. You've been in that business for a while, except that the market wasn't there, right?
Yes.
But
So-
it's slightly different market. You know, when you take coconut water in the Philippines, yung buko yon, that's young coconut. Actually, what the world market demands is water from the mature coconut. So when you process it, you get desiccated coconut or white copra, and you get water. So there's much higher value added in that mature coconut than from your buko, which is an immature coconut.
For mangoes, for example, another product where that you're saying this is God's gift to the Philippines. What is required from the private sector and the government in order to move us up the value chain?
There's unlimited demand for Philippine mangoes just among these neighboring countries, particularly Hong Kong, China, Japan, Korea. Everybody loves our mango.
Except the Indians.
Except the Indian, because they have Alfonso mango. But
They say their mangoes.
They have the best in the world
yes,
also. they
yes,
claim.
yes. But Alfonso mango is not available every day of the year. Unlike Philippine mango, it's available every day of the year. So the food service industry in these major cities, in Japan, Korea, and China, they all love Philippine mango because it's consistent, the taste profile is good, and there's no fiber. So the only challenge right now is supply. We actually have a lot of these mango trees that are idle in war-torn area in Mindanao, in a lot of these provinces, but nobody really cares to organize the induction of flowers. It has been very difficult for farmers right now to have access to credit. This is a few thousand pesos or few 100,000 pesos credit for them to be able to produce the mango after 120 days.
This despite the Agri-Agra law, which says banks have to lend 25% of their loan portfolio to that's a very big smile when you're
No, the bankers would. I am 100% sure bankers would opt to pay the penalty rather than to comply with the 25% Agri-Agra requirement.
I think the penalty is 0.5% or something.
Can I say something about mango? There's an area where you have government-private sector cooperation. While we have the best tasting mango maybe to us Filipinos, it doesn't last long. That's an area for research and agriculture research and development which takes some time. Imagine, before we started with red apple, then you have green apple, you have granola apple, and the Thais are developing other varieties of mango so that we can fill up the supermarket. That's happening to pineapple. From Cayenne, now we have MD, MG2, MD3, which are different varieties. For banana, we have lowland Cavendish, now we have highland Cavendish, then you have señorita. So we have to undertake research so that the mango will have a longer shelf life. Ang nipis ng balat nun doesn't last long.
Let's end on that note. I mean, two questions. Number one, like I said, I've been hearing about our lack of infrastructure forever. I'd like to ask both of you if you think that under this government that's accelerated. And number two, in terms of R&D, research and development, what is the private sector and what's the government doing in that area? So first of all, infrastructure. Are those irrigation facilities, farm-to-market roads, post-harvest facilities, is that accelerating now? Tony, do you see it?
Well, it's a bad timing that you have to ask this question because yesterday we just have a big flood. The real reason is I think not only about the drainage system of the city, it's really about the management of the dam. So it becomes dam you do, dam you don't. This agri-infrastructure spending, if you look at the Department of Agriculture's annual budget, I think it's quite there was always a substantial increase.
Yes,
but
substantial.
Are these spending really felt by the farmers? Honestly, as of today, there's lack of this immediate result yet to be felt.
Is it accelerating?
It is accelerating, and there's a growing realization that there has to be a convergence between infrastructure and agriculture development. The problem with the FMR budget is that it's heavily influenced by congressmen.
FMR is farm to market.
Farm to market road. Some people call it from my farm to my resort road, whatever it is. And the NEDA and the other agents are saying that there has to be justification in the government intervention, whether it's in the input supply, in the farm to market roads, or the R&D. And in R&D, we need badly to improve R&D, and it has to be influenced by what the market and the private sector wants.
So that's my last question for you, Tony. R&D, what is the private sector, such as yourself, doing there? What's the government doing?
Well, I'm sure government has a specific budget. That's why in Department of Agriculture, we have this Bureau of Research, Agricultural Research, BAR. They're one of the most funded. But in terms of the specific percentage points to the GDP, it's really insignificant as compared to neighboring countries.
So are you doing it? Is the private sector doing it?
Private sector, I think R&D is the lifeblood of every company. Without innovation, without R&D, there's no future. So trying to, for example, we have to keep innovating on how to, what new products to come out, so we can be a market leader on specific segment. On our own internal budget, R&D is slowly increasing in terms of the percentage of R&D expenditures as compared to our total revenue. But government plays a different role. They